How's it going, everybody? This is going to be a resource guide for you new players, mid-game players, or players just starting a new account in Marvel Strike Force, given the new seismic change in the commander level experience that we now have, because we are leveling so much faster. We have more opportunities to bring characters higher, equip more gear tiers, and all of this is happening much faster than before, which is good, but leads to bottlenecks faster. So in this video, we're going to talk about what you should be prioritizing the most, why, how that affects other modes, and what you can do to be prepared to progress as quickly and efficiently as possible in Marvel Strike Force. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into that right now. The number one game mode every player should prioritize until it is set up for them is going to be your raids. Now, raids, there's a bunch of reasons to focus raids, the number one of which is that it is the PvE mode of the game, which basically means that you are only held back by what the computer is throwing up against you. It's not other players with their more developed rosters who've been playing longer who can stop you from climbing further and further, right? Which is basically every other game mode. So it's important that we take advantage of this so that we can climb faster, get the better rewards, and honestly, they're kind of the best rewards. Because once we start climbing to Incursion difficulty 2, the nodes start dropping a lot of what is called ability materials, which is going to be what we call T3s. That is what you use to upgrade your character's abilities to the level of 6664, and until characters are at baseline that, they simply don't function. So until we climb up to that part, Incursion difficulty 2.0, all the way to 2.3, we're not really able to build up as many teams as we would like anyway, so it's really beneficial to focus on your raid teams. There's a lot of other reasons to focus on raid teams, which we're going to get to. But when it comes to your raid teams, you should know that once you hit the Doom raid tier, which is the second tier of raids after Ultimus, you start needing to have 5 teams. Before that, you only needed the 1. You need a team that represents every origin in the game, from Bio, Skill, Mystic, Tech, and Mutant. There's a current raid meta right now where every tag is represented by a very, very powerful team. For Bio, it's Hive Mind. For Tech, it's Pegasus. For Mutant, it's Extreme. For Mystic, it's Bifrost. They're about to get zoned out, though, so don't try and build them too high. And for Skill, they're currently being replaced. The Spider Society, they're currently coming to the game. They're going to be the raid meta for at least a year. If you've already started working on your invaders, definitely stop working on that. It's not going to be worth your time. The good news is these teams are so powerful, they can do extremely big raid punch-ups. So you see my Pegasus team right here sitting at around 400,000 powered, characters ranging between 60,000 and Kestrel all the way up at 115. She's my biggest character in the game, by the way. And I'm able to do extreme punch-ups into these nodes. So you're going to see the enemies on this first node, they're around 117,000 here, and on the final, on the boss node, they're actually around 250,000 or so. Yeah, 240,000, 238,000. They are extremely powerful and able to sim it. So, I mean, you're not always going to want to sim it as a new player. You might want to play them out sometimes. It's going to be about like 20 minutes of gameplay a day if you do that. On other days, you don't want to do that. If your raid team is big enough, you could sim it without worry of losing, and so you're already happy you built up a big raid team. But here's the thing. I'm able to sim these nodes, which might lead some players to believe, you know, I'm already able to do the raids here. My alliance is doing. I'll just stop building this raid team, stop building all the raid teams, and I'll start focusing on other game modes. That is a really bad idea. Because of the new leveling structure, our commander levels are going up so much faster that we're able to level faster and faster and faster. You see here, I have a very wide array of characters. Not all of them are raids. I didn't have a boosted account till recently, so I was able to do that. But now my time input into the game is not in the same wavelength as the speed at which I'm leveling. And so when I'm trying to keep up with my raid characters now, I literally cannot make enough gold and training materials to keep up with my commander level. This is an okay thing though. It's okay to be behind as long as we are able to keep growing. Because again, the number one game mode is raids, and there are multiple tiers for raids. So we have the Ultimus raids that start off, then it's the Doom raids, which I'm currently working through. 3 difficulties there, Dooms 1, 2, and 3, all of which have sub-difficulties. Then there's the Incursion raids. We have Incursion 1 and Incursion 2, which is the current content of raid tier. And in Incursion 2, there's 3 difficulties there as well. So here's the thing. I suggest, and this is what I'm doing on my account now, I am only leveling up my raid characters until the point where my alliance is able to do Incursion difficulty 2 at least 2.0. And here's kind of the bitter truth. You may be an alliance, and if they're not If they're not trying to progress through the raid tiers at the same rate where you are capable of because you're focusing it, you probably want to find another alliance. This is a common occurrence in this game, is you find an alliance whose people you really mesh with, but your in-game goals don't match theirs. Now, if you want to be casual, you don't care about going through the raid tier system as fast as possible to get those best rewards, you kind of just, do it at a snail's pace, stay where you are. That's perfectly fine. Play the game the way it makes you happy. Otherwise, find another alliance before you fall in love with the people, because we have the best community in Marvel Strike Force, and it'll be very hard to leave people if you grow attached. Trust me, I've 100% been there. Another thing you need to worry about, besides just keeping up with the levels on your characters, is going to be their ISO level. So you see here, the green icon, then matched by a bunch of yellow bars, that is my character's ISO level. We have a video on ISO also in the new player channel. Make sure you check it out if you don't understand what ISO is. But once again, because we're leveling so fast, because we're able to bring our characters' levels up and their gear tier level up faster, because also we get gear much faster, we need to be able to hit the requirements in the raids as far as ISO goes. In Doom 1, the ISO requirements for the 3 last sections, you need to have all your characters level 5. In the first 2 sections, it's level 4. When we move on over to Doom 2, they need to have ISO level 1, blue, which is the next level after green, which you can only hit once you hit level 75. When we hit Doom 3, they need to be at least level 2 for the first difficulty of it. And that's going to be the next level after as well, with blue gear into there. And once you reach the final incursion difficulty, incursion 2, difficulty 0 to 4, you need to have your characters equipped with ISO blue level 4, which is, 4 bars after the 5 green bars. It's a little confusing. We go over it in that ISO video once again. But take it from me, this takes time to farm those ISO crystals. You need a certain amount of crystals for every stat on a character. So you have 25 raid characters, you have 5 stats per character, you need to get 81 green crystals per stat per character. You can see how it compounds up very quickly. So if you're sprinkling your ISO all over your roster, you're not going to be able to get your raid teams up to the point where they can actually get into the raids, right? With all that said, guys, this doesn't mean you should max out all of your raid teams all the way to level 100, all the way to gear tier 18. That might be true for some teams like Extreme, who are very powerful in all game modes, but generally that's not necessary. So what's the universal stopping point where your current raid teams are going to function at the highest current raid tier? Well, that's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, but generally speaking, level 85 between gears 16 on the best characters on the team and 14 on the tertiary characters of the team can get you through all of the nodes from difficulty 2 of the incursion raid tier, which is the current highest raid tier. Now, if you want to know about specific characters and how high they should be built, or specific teams and kind of the arrangement in which you should have them built, let me know in the comment section below and I will answer that on a case-by-case basis, because otherwise this video might end up being too long. Now though, let's go talk about the other game modes, because if we're putting everything into these raid teams, what can we expect from those other game modes, especially the second most important game mode, Arena, where we get our premium currency. In Arena, everybody still understands that raid is the most important mode, so you are going to find yourself surrounded by people that just throw up their best raid team. The best raid team in the game is by far the Extreme raid team. Now, if you want to set yourself apart from them and be able to do huge punch-ups like I'm about to show you here, you want to sprinkle in what's called plug-and-play characters, the best characters in the game. So we're about to tackle an 825,000 powered Hive Mind team, which is a very powerful raid team. I'm coming in here with Nightcrawler, Kestrel, who are some of the most outstanding raid characters in the game, and I put in some good plug-and-play speed advantage characters with them. So I have Kang here, he does speed bar, he puts out slows, he does decent damage. I have Icarus here, who does very good damage, he flips buffs, does more turn meter rewind, and Cersei does the same. What I end up being able to do here is lap the enemy team. So it doesn't matter that they're twice as powerful as me, because I could take twice as many turns, I'm actually going to be able to win this, which is unheard of. But this is going to be a distraction from building your raid teams. This doesn't mean it's not worth it, because it absolutely is, being able to hang in with the raid scene, but it's going to cost you. I would strongly suggest you pick as few characters as possible that you're going to have to do this sort of branch it out to build up for Arena. Now, Icarus and Cersei are great characters to build up, even though they're a little bit older, with Icarus farmable in the raid store, Cersei farmable in the war store. Kang is a character you're getting to get and build up eventually anyway for Nova, so he's a fantastic character. You could find him in the Incursion campaign chapters 3.8. This campaign doesn't unlock until you hit level 70, so keep that in mind, and even then, you have to build up certain teams to like minimal levels to get to him. It's well worth it though. You need to be able to farm that campaign later on anyway. Another great character is actually Namor. We're not going to show him here, although he's one of my favorite characters in early game arena, because he does a 50% turn meter rewind with one ability. I've used him with my Extreme to punch up into other Extreme teams in place of Cyclops, which I thought was really, really cool. But I should also show, so we showed Hive Mind doing a big punch up, right? Let's show now the same team tackling the Extreme team. This is less of a punch up. I believe this was still a 200,000 powered punch up though, which is very, very impressive. And this will get you through it. So this is how you could distinguish yourself from other players trying to get a little bit higher in arena without costing yourself too much. There's other amazing, current arena meta characters you should keep an eye out for sure. Especially a character like Black Knight, who if you're a spender, he's going to help really carry you in arena. He's absolutely devastating to the enemy team. So you might want to look out for him as well. But once we start unlocking characters like Apocalypse, which isn't going to take too long, and a character like Skrull, who we're probably looking at within 6 to 8 months, it's going to drastically change everything you know about arena and the game mode in general. But yeah, the building up your raid teams is not a death sentence for arena. As you see my opponent here, he's hanging around the top 100 very comfortably, and that's enough for him to continue to build up his teams. He'll probably be able to do this until he's level 85 to 90, and then he'll start branching out into more hybridized teams for arena, which is really cool. Now let's go talk about the modes that are a little bit less important. Talk about War and Crucible now. So let's talk about War first. Now, War is going to be your alliance structured mode where you're going to be working along with your alliance to attack other alliances. The reason that I bring up War first is because it's arguably the mode that has more potentiality for you to enjoy yourselves and actually have targets to attack over Crucible, where the Crucible player pool is a lot more condensed. So in War, your raid teams are actually going to be very, very effective. So you're going to see here, we have an 800,000 Extreme team facing off against a 1.2 million Weapon X, which is a War team, and they're actually going to get it done. Now, is there a little bit of good RNG in this particular matchup? Yeah, this isn't going to work 100% of the time. If Nightcrawler got targeted by the Omega Red there, you probably would lose. But the fact that it can even work on a big punch-up is very, very important in just understanding that your raid teams are going to have lasting value in other modes. So to build mode-specific teams for War and Crucible, you're not hitting enough avenues in the game, which is just not really healthy. So this Extreme team is going to take the W here. Let's fast forward a little bit just so you can see no doctored footage or anything like that. So that's one version of the raid team that's going to work well. There's another option here. We got the Pegasus team, 420,000 Pegasus tackling a 600,000 Black Order. Now, I don't want to mislead anyone either that your raid teams obviously are not going to beat the best War teams. Like Pegasus isn't going to beat a Gamma team. Pegasus isn't going to beat a New Avengers team. It's not going to beat a Superior 6 team that's on defense, right, with the Sinister 6 War allies. So it's not going to, they're not going to be like master keys for you, but they will be 5 teams that will 100% work on big punch-ups for your mid-game war experience. Now, where this advice completely goes out the window is if instead of organically having your alliance do war at the level they're a part of, assuming you are the same sort of power level and play style as your alliance, if you go instead into a big alliance that's just kind of carrying you along for the ride, then it doesn't matter what you do for War anyway. You're never going to build your A-Force team big enough. You're never going to have the resources to build them big enough to tackle people's 2 to 3 million powered Weapon X. Like, it's just not going to be an option for you. So there's just no value in building for War particularly, but it's nice to know that there are some crossover teams. Just another example so you know that basically the 3 big current raid teams, that's your Hive Mind, your Pegasus, and your Extreme, they all have value in one way or another. All these teams can beat the teams I'm showing you here, minus the Weapon X one. They could beat Marauders, they can beat Young Avengers, they can beat Wakanda, so there's lots of different teams that you can actually make use of with your raid team. So it's not a complete loss. So that's pretty good. And yeah, like I was talking about earlier, there's just more potential to participate in war as a mid-game player, even using raid teams, than there is in a mode like Crucible if you're building those mode-specific teams. Let's go talk about why that is. Now for Crucible, it's important to understand that because it is a 1v1 game mode where you're paired against other people, your punching up potential is going to get very limited very quickly, whereas in wars, some of your alliance mates can kind of carry you against the enemy's stronger opponents, unless all the enemies, all very strong opponents. But if you get paired up against a really strong opponent in Crucible, it's absolutely just, you're done. Like if my current account were to match up with somebody who put a full Gear Tier 17 Extreme team on defense, I literally wouldn't be able to clear the enemy. They could have hand teams in every other room and perfectly win. Fortunately, it seems like up to about Silver 1 or Silver 2, as you see from this footage right here, it's a lot of unengaged players, I'll say. A lot of them keep their hand teams on defense, or they throw these really wonky, like one character with their hand team on defense. And so it becomes an efficiency show, and you can get it done that way. I use my raid teams and a couple other teams, powered players that I built up, like my Eternals that I built up for Arena, and I'm able to be very efficient. So I was able to climb up to Silver very quickly. I have heard, and I do believe, at Gold, because of the way matchmaking works and because of the current trophy system, there is just this devastating, like, 50,000 account pileup where you could go ahead and you could face somebody like you who's got some hand teams, who's got maybe one team on defense, or you can face somebody with like 40 million TCP that has every room covered with 1.5 million power defense teams, and you literally can't do anything. In that case, even if you were to build your Crucible teams, it wouldn't matter because of the punch-ups that you would be having to do along the way. And then you would also be taxed so much by trying to keep up with that. You'd be just demolished in your resources as far as raids and arena go, and it just wouldn't be worth it. Now, the diamonds, the big progression system that's currently in the game, that is in Crucible, it hurts to miss out on that. But honestly, in the mid and early game, that should be a lot of your concern. Your concern is unlocking characters, getting to the highest raid tier, and then jumping in the meta. That is to say, starting to only focus on new characters once you're set up. Once you're set up in your raids, you're set up in your arena, then you pick which game mode you want. When those new teams come out, you hard focus those new characters and you go from there. But that's an end game thing. That is not the mid or early game experience. Let's wrap this up by talking about the Apocalypse, Fork in the Road, and Dark Dimension. All right, the Apocalypse Saga, Horsemen in general, and the Horsemen teams. Here's some really comfortable advice that I actually hate to give, and you may not like to hear it. Switching all of your focus off of raid teams to build up the Horsemen characters so that you can unlock Apocalypse is really gratifying when you get Apocalypse. But it's really, really sucky while you're doing it, and it's really, really sucky after you do it, because you're left with 4 teams that are so subpar they would be like building the worst raid teams possible and struggling through content like War and Crucible. It's a really feels bad moment. So as much as my advice to endgame players is, no, you do not skip Apocalypse. Once you are set up in raids, you get the Apocalypse, you get empowered Apocalypse, you figure out ways to use those Horsemen teams for now, and you go from there. My advice to new players and up-and-coming players is, the developers have asked for feedback on how to make the Apocalypse journey more palatable, and I do think changes will be made. Is that going to happen anytime soon? Probably not. You're probably looking at about 6 months on that. So if you are just starting now, that might line up perfectly for you. But otherwise, you really shouldn't build up any Horseman teams until you are done with raids and you are ready to build them up. Like you would snap your fingers, build up all those teams to Gear Tier 17. I believe that requires level 85 right away. Put the ISO 5 on them right away. Get the Big Boy Apocalypse right away. That is the only time I would do that. And even then, I would be super hesitant to do it. It is an absolute travesty how big of a resource, just destructional force the Apocalypse Saga is for new players. Because when we chased it during the year of, those teams were very relevant. They were all over the place in War and in Crucible. But now they get phased out by even like the newest kind of raid team is kicking out Horseman teams, right? So it's a super feels bad moment. And then that'll lead to Dark Dimensions in general. Now, luckily, Dark Dimensions, they follow a much more obvious path. So for Dark Dimensions 1 and 2, it just requires gear tier. Your raid teams will absolutely walk through that. For Dark Dimensions 3 all the way to 6, it starts requiring traits, Cosmic, Global, City, and then there's Legendary. I believe that starts in Dark Dimension 4, and then there's Legendary Non-Horsemen. I believe that starts in Dark Dimension 6. And then there's Legendary plus Apocalypse as well in Dark Dimension 6. That's a different conversation. There's so much kind of carryover from your raid teams that like 90% of it you can just do with your raid carries, which is fantastic. But there's a little bit of nuance to it that I feel more comfortable about talking in a different video, because this one's already gone pretty long. So let's wrap it up here. That's why you should focus on your raid teams. The too long didn't watch version, I'll put a timestamp so people can get right to this, is basically build up the current raid meta teams, use them everywhere, try and get a couple plug-and-play characters to complement the strongest raid characters in Arena, and that's your main focus. Climb up to the highest difficulty raid, incursion, 2 point whatever, as fast as you can, and then the real fun begins. That's when you get to theory craft the teams that you want to build, for the modes you want to build, for the flash events you want to build. That's when the real fun starts. How big of a time sink is that? Well, let's just say that it's been a week since the experience kicked in, and I've already gone from level 72 to I'm going to hit 75 tomorrow. So 3 levels in 1 week. If I get my characters to 85, which is only 10 days away, you know, another month, then I'll be able to start working on those more fun teams. So it's probably about a 2.5, 3 month adventure. It's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. If you are a new player or a mid-game player, or you're just starting a new account for fun, let me know how you feel about all this information in the comment section below. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have as well. But for now, stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.